Yoda brothers, what's up? It's the director. Chargers fans, I got an interesting topic of conversation today, one revolving around ex-Baltimore Ravens free safety Earl Thomas, also of the Seattle Seahawks back in the day in the Legion of Boom. No question about it, the guy is super talented, but he does have, some character issues and stuff like that. But still, Chargers fans want to know, would it be worth it to add him to this already stacked Chargers defense and make a serious run at the playoffs this year with an absolute complete defense? I kind of want to answer that question for you guys today, give you the pros and cons of whether or not we should be signing Earl Thomas while this window is open. Guys, before we get started, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this video. So Baltimore Ravens did release Earl Thomas because of an altercation that happened this past week. It turns out he threw punches at this guy Chuck Clark, seemingly for almost no reason. It feels like there's been some tension between them for a long time. That's a serious no-no, throwing punches at one of your teammates during practice. And there was also other problems with Earl Thomas regarding his relationship with his teammates and stuff like that. And so we'll get into that here in just a minute. Before we do, I want to go into the pros of why we should be signing Earl Thomas. Why should Earl Thomas join the Chargers, even given all of these issues that he had off the field and on the field? The first thing that we would want from Earl Thomas is to complete this absolutely stacked Chargers defense. For one, look at Earl Thomas as a player. He is a hell of a playmaker. This guy goes up there, he causes interceptions. One of the big things that the Chargers have been struggling with in these past few years has been turnovers. And Earl Thomas is kind of a specialty player when it comes to causing turnovers. One of those safeties can bait the quarterback and force picks. And I really think that's something the Chargers would benefit from this year. He's a veteran that has a lot of experience in that. We've seen a lot of proof that he's capable of doing that, at a very high level even today. The next thing is Earl Thomas, given his situation, being released from the Ravens on the premise of, the stuff that he did, he'll likely be cheap. He'll likely have to take, a short-term, cheap, prove-it deal with whatever team he goes with and keep his attitude in check. If he wants to get signed to something long-term, he's put himself in a situation where he's going to have to take not very much money this year, as well as keep his attitude in check on a short-term basis with a team. And that kind of presents the Chargers with a good opportunity to add that talent to the secondary without giving a long-term commitment to Earl Thomas himself. The next thing would be the tipping point for the Chargers. Yes, so the Chargers defense is probably one of the best in the league right now. I would say top 3, even in contention for number 1 overall. If we were to add a playmaker like Earl Thomas to the secondary, it could be the tipping point that the Chargers need to really secure the number 1 defense in the league, as well as mentor future starter in Nasir Adderley. I think this would be one of the best players in the NFL for him to learn from. He's been compared to Earl Thomas in his playmaking abilities quite a bit, in college. So maybe this would be a really good way for him to learn how to play the game of football at the next level, but hopefully he only takes the football advice and not the off-field advice. And lastly, Earl Thomas does have a relationship with Gus Bradley that dates back to his days in Seattle. So Gus Bradley's very familiar with how to utilize Earl Thomas, his play set, his skill set, and I feel like that relationship coming back, and this time with the Chargers, which I would actually say is a very close defense to how dominant of the Legion of Boom days back in Seattle, that might be, the whole situation feels like it would be a perfect spot for Earl Thomas to land. All right. So those are the reasons why we maybe should sign Earl Thomas. I think it's low risk, high reward. There's reasons that he could teach our rookies. He could, work with his ex, coach in Gus Bradley. I feel like there's a lot of reasons that this would work. The cons, however, and I'll be frank in saying this up front, this probably outweighs it quite a bit for me, dudes. The big thing is his attitude, okay? I'm not even going to get to the throwing punches on the field yet. His attitude. It seems that he's been missing a lot of practices. He seems kind of lazy and nonchalant about his commitment to the team. And his teammates don't really like him. He doesn't really have that fire of a leader as far as what I'm hearing right now. And that's kind of a problem. It's really rare that you hear teammates, speak out of their dislike for another teammate, and it feels like, they, as much as the coaches and everybody, wanted him to leave the team. And the Baltimore Ravens took a pretty huge cap penalty for releasing Earl Thomas right now. And it feels like it was worth it to them to get him off of the roster. That's a huge red flag. I feel like the Chargers locker room culture right now is very, very solid, especially watching things like Hard Knocks, backstage charges, stuff like that, getting a behind the scenes look at what the Chargers locker room is like. It's very close knit. These guys, they really respect one another and they respect themselves enough to make sure locker room culture is very sound. And I feel like you're kind of throwing a wrench into the gears with a guy like Earl Thomas. And so that's something I don't know if I'm willing to compromise by bringing him on the team. Obviously, he is a troublemaker. We did go over the things that he did during practice, and if he's willing to do that, over a guy who, from what I'm reading, Chuck Clark, the guy that he threw a punch at, he's a very nice guy. If he could do that to him, he could do that to anybody. And I feel like maybe his ego would get in the way because there's a lot of playmakers on this Chargers defense, especially in the secondary. The other big thing is we do have other stars to sign. I get that he would be pretty cheap, but whatever we pay him is probably going to take away from what we could be paying Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, the guys that we want to keep on the roster. So maybe that's a little bit more minor because I do see him being very, very cheap to whatever team he goes to. But that is one thing to consider. And lastly, I'd mentioned Nasir Adderley on the cons or in the pros list, saying that he could learn a lot from Earl Thomas as far as being a playmaker. And I do still think that. But we also have to remember we do have Nasir Adderley, a guy that's been, compared to Earl Thomas for quite a long time, who didn't play a lot last year because he was injured in his rookie year. I feel like if we already have a guy like Earl Thomas on the roster, who could definitely bloom into that, I want to see him on the field more. And Nasir Adderley is going to get even better by having more exposure during games, on the football field during, Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays. I want to see him get more playing time, see more snaps, because the more he sees, the better he's going to get. And eventually we'll have our own Earl Thomas on this team. I'm very, very high on Nasir Adderley, guys. So I want to see him thrive on this team. But again, like I said in the pros, he does have a lot. He has a lot he could learn from Earl Thomas. So it could kind of go either way there. But that's kind of where I'm leaning. What's my absolute consensus on this? After listing the pros and cons of whether or not to bring on Earl Thomas or not, my consensus for me, at least, and this is just my opinion, your guys' opinion can differ in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think. But I'm going to say no. I don't think I want Earl Thomas on the team. I think the Chargers defense is already really, really good. Sure, if they decide to go that way, that's really cool. I really hope it works out, and I hope he checks himself a little bit, his attitude, and his demeanor with the team. But at the same time, I love the Chargers defense so much right now. If I were to add other pieces, I would say like, Damon Snacks Harrison or something like that to further beef up that defensive line. The Chargers secondary, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty complete, especially at safety. You got Rayshon Jenkins, Nasir Adderley, Derwin James. There's a lot of big pieces back there, and adding Earl Thomas could be really good for, on the field football purposes, but I don't want any distractions off the football field, on the football field during practice. And if Earl Thomas has proven that he's sort of like that, I would rather keep that away from the team and keep the pieces that we have right now. So my consensus answer is going to be no. I would rather not sign Earl Thomas, but it's all right if you guys do. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below if it would be worth it to you guys. Again, there's a lot of pros to him joining the Chargers this year, and I can see, if the Chargers do decide to sign him, I see why. I understand why. Well, Chargers fans, thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Leave your comments in the comment section below of what your thoughts are in this situation. This has been the Director. We'll see you guys next time. As always, bolt up and stay frosty.